Toolbox, a show about the skills we need to build healthy relationships with others. On our last show, which was entitled Emotions, the Silent Language, we talked about the brain, the role of the brain in communication, and how the brain is very reactive to things like trust and threats, and can actually turn off other parts of our brain, a higher level portion of our brain, that can help us interpret communication. So it was very important for us to discuss how to keep that from occurring in the brain. And then when we talked about, or some of our viewers actually got in touch with us and said that they would like to know more information about how to keep that process of the brain just taking over from happening. And therefore, how do we go about doing the understanding of our feelings, labeling them, so that we can better utilize that information in our decisions about communication. So that tells us that feelings are actually becoming the watchdog of what is going on within us. Today, therefore, we're going to discuss three things, or try to answer actually three questions. What happens to us when we are unable to articulate our feelings? 2, what happens to the accuracy of our communication when we don't have the vocabulary to use? And 3, what happens to our perception of another person's communication to us when our vocabulary is limited? So hopefully we can answer those three questions.
Well, we'll start at least. So basically we kind of wander. Research has shown that if we don't examine and accurately identify our feelings, label them basically for ourselves first and then for others, we can respond somewhat randomly. Mm-hmm. We're clumsy, and we can misdirect our energy and behave in ways that are both doesn't serve us, mm-hmm. and potentially harms our relationship with others. And then we end up having to repair that, or move past that. So without the capacity to name our feelings, we lose the power to self-regulate, because we don't know what we're interacting with. It's just kind of like, blah, mm-hmm. And it's totally physical. And we can't make constructive decisions. We don't know what we're responding to, so we don't know how to remedy it. And we can't ask for appropriate requests. We don't know what to ask for from the people that are in our community. Mm-hmm.
A recipe for miscommunication.
Yeah. So first off, we don't take the time. Kind of like in theater, when you're speaking, sometimes we say we take a beat. We take mm-hmm. a pause. We don't take beats. We just kind of keep moving. Mm-hmm. And you need that beat. You need that moment to reflect. But then if we don't have sufficient vocabulary, feelings vocabulary, we can't describe the nuances and the many colors. Color is a really great metaphor for feelings, mm-hmm. because you could say, like, well, it's blue. Mm-hmm. For instance, my son is getting married in June, and the bride's colors are blue. But I need to know what shade of blue, mm-hmm. In order to show up and align and complement without distracting or looking like, I don't want to show up in navy if it's really like robin's egg or something like that.
Each shade of the blue would have a different reaction.
Have a different reaction. Or you're like, are you angry, hot red, or are you just a little pink, mm-hmm. a little perturbed? So, so it becomes difficult for us to share our experiences accurately and to align with people if we don't know those nuances. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of thought leaders right now out there that are focusing on feelings. Mark Brackett we've talked about, and Daniel Pink, and Brene Brown, and we have been reading about some of their stuff, and just to name a few. And Brene she said in her most recent work, she's talking about 87 different nuanced, discrete emotions. Mm-hmm. And that we need to really properly articulate our human experiences. However, in the same research, in a national survey, people on average mentioned 3.
Yes.
Happy, sad, and angry. Mm-hmm. You could even say the happy, sad, mad cluster. And so that's what we commonly default to.
Doesn't make a very colorful
No,
picture.
it's kind of, we're just kind of like splattering. So.
Well, she also talked about in her recent book that in order for us to make sense of these feelings, we need to identify them, put a name to them, she gave 4 different points that she felt were important. The first one is to understand how the feelings are created and act in our body and in our brain, and that's what we were talking about in our last show. The second,
the amygdala, you know.
Yes, the amygdala hijack. The second one is being aware of how our beliefs and our upbringing, our life experiences are shaping our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And that is really sort of an insidious process that can occur.
And we take it as truth, that
Yes.
this is the way it should be because it's been our personal experience.
Sometimes we don't even recognize it's operating.
Yeah.
The third is to become aware of our frequent go-to or default patterns. And I found that was a fascinating one because when you look, people actually do have different ideas or truths in their mind that they keep defaulting to in their communication.
We've got different operating systems.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And they may be very good and very accurate, but if they're not, and we're not examining them in this particular situation, then we can go astray in our communication.
And repeat things that aren't constructive.
Right. Yeah. And the last that she mentioned was being able to recognize the context of the situation. So that is this situation bringing out things because it is particular to this, or what is actually occurring? So that is quite a bit to look into, and you can see why the higher levels of the brain are the only parts of the brain capable of dealing with those questions, whereas the more reptilian or primitive parts of the brain don't care about that at all.
Right. So, but we've got to manage our brain in order to get to that higher level place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So we talked last time about like frustration and disappointment and jealousy and envy, and let's talk today about stress.
Okay.
Because that's a common situation that we say we find ourselves in.
I think everyone feels it. Yes, at times.
Stress. You know, whether you're a parent or a worker, it's stress. But there are nuances of that word stress. We kind of get a vague understanding from that, like, what does this mean? But if we don't think about like the granular level of that stress, then we can't prepare for the action and the remedy. And worse, we might be destructive in our communication and our interactions with other people while we're under that stress.
Right.
So stress can be defined as a time when we sense a demand on us that is beyond our ability to cope or to deliver adequately, successfully. But there's a lot of synonymous words that could be used when we're talking about stress. And I'll just like list a few, and then we're going to look at the difference between them. So we say we're overloaded, we're overwhelmed. We might be scared or panicked also. We might feel incompetent or lost or vulnerable or used, you know, if we find ourselves, or helpless or completely defeated, angry, resentful, might be embarrassed, feel manipulated, bullied into this situation, or like we're failing, or we're exasperated, we're burned out, we're worn down, and we feel harassed. So
each one of those has just a little bit different tenor of meaning that is what we're getting at to pay attention to. Yes.
Right. So, and it may depend on where the source of that stress is coming from. You know, if we are feeling like it came from outside of us, then we may have a different vocabulary because of our perception. And it might be that we feel resentful, or we're angry, or we feel manipulated, or used, or mistreated, or unappreciated, burdened. And because we think that this has happened to us, a partner or a boss or a coworker has kind of loaded us. No, there are certainly boundaries that we could have set that we may not have said, but we perceive that it's coming. But we might, if we don't think about that, we could just react and say, like, you know, I can't handle this, I quit, or we're done. You know, you never appreciated me. You know, I'm tired of this, and just kind of like in a moment of exasperation, do something that we regret, or say something that we regret later, because we haven't examined the source of this.
Right. The primitive part of the brain is saying,
just like, enough.
Defend, defend, defend,
like,
danger. You know.
I can't. You know, I cannot do this. And we perceive that it has happened to us, and so we're lashing back. But if, on the other hand, you take a minute to identify, it's like, okay, so what is going on here? Why am I reacting in this way?
And we engage the upper part of our brain.
What's going on? And kind of like backtrack to the origin of these feelings. Like, and when have I felt this way before? You know, how is this parallel or mimicking a situation that I've been in before? And can I, you know, maybe, am I misinterpreting my feelings? Could I have inadvertently gotten myself into this by misrepresenting my intentions? And what are my feelings telling me I have to do? So if we're taking the situation of like a partner or a boss or somebody has like piled this on me, what do I have to do? Okay, so maybe I need to take an I statement and say, you know, when you expect me to blah, 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 I feel. And so that you can express your discontent and your like, that you're just overwhelmed, you need help, or you can't handle this.
And that makes the point too, that even in the I message, you need to have that feeling word and it needs to be precise and accurate.
I feel overwhelmed. So, and you can address it appropriately in the moment and maybe not revisit this again. By the way, I need to take my own advice in this case.
But you can also, let's take a different shade of meaning from the stress now. Suppose it's internal.
You've brought it on yourself somehow.
Suppose that I'm beginning to feel scared, I'm beginning to feel overwhelmed, panicked, incompetent, embarrassed, because I'm realizing I'm struggling with whatever I'm supposed to be doing.
You
whether
overpromised. You may have created
could be
this,
an overpromised,
like,
or something I think I should be able to do, and I'm just not performing well. Whether it's in a relationship or it's in work.
Maybe you didn't understand, or you needed help, or you needed an extension, or and you were afraid to be vulnerable and ask in a timely way.
Because if I did that, I would think of myself as being weak and so forth. So my reactive brain is saying, look out, you know, this is a sign that you are incompetent, you know, you're in a dangerous place.
You're a horrible person.
Be careful, isolate yourself, you know, you start to berate myself, underestimate my abilities, because now I'm in full panic almost, and I might start to feel fully unappreciated and disconnect from my peers or from my partner, which actually is the last thing that I need to do to really resolve it. I might even start to think, I just can't do this, it's hopeless. Or maybe I'm not the right person for this partner. Maybe that partner is right. I'm just a flake, you know. I just
or
can't.
My boss is right. Like
I'm irresponsible. And when we get to that point, that is not helpful, and it cuts out communication even within ourselves. So to get through that, then I need to start identifying those feelings and working with them a little bit more. So I can ask myself, am I working to my full capacity? Or am I using some of my time in non-productive ways? Whether that could be at home doing things, or is it at the office? You know, am I spending time talking with people?
Or on my phone, or whatever.
Right. Is there some truth to that, in other words? Or do I need to be better organized and structure my time? Maybe I'm having some difficulty with that. If I can identify, oh, that's where my feeling is leading me, I can ask for help and say, yeah, I think maybe I could use some help in structuring this, my time, so that I could make better use of it. Or is the task I'm being asked to do and the time allotted for that truly unrealistic with it? So it is unfair. But again, if that's the case, I need to be able to express that to someone, assert myself that way without going on the defensive. And the last one is, have I sort of indirectly, have I, the disbursements of tasks, if they're not equitable, then say in a partnership I may have to say, I'm really feeling as if I'm doing most of the work around here. And then it becomes a problem to solve. And the last one is, have I almost indirectly consented to being treated in this way? At work, for instance, have I always taken on extra work and, I'll do it. And underneath feeling, why am I always the one doing these extra things? Until it gets to the point where my feelings get so aroused by this that I react, and I'm not thinking, maybe I'm contributing to this. Or maybe in a relationship, I have taken on all kinds of tasks around the house and everything, and not realize how the imbalance was there right from the beginning.
And how it erodes you.
Yeah, and I sort of gave a indirect consent to have it be that way.
To solve some other need that you have. Yeah, right. It's that whole examination, and this examination might help you in the moment. It may not. You may have to get through this, but it can certainly prevent a cyclical pattern.
Yes.
You know, like, why do I find myself in this position?
Right. So I might be asking myself some more questions, such as what communication skills should I be using to respectfully express my feelings, and what actions might be most productive. So I think, you know, if we just kind of loop back there for a minute, moving away from just I'm stressed, because how does that's kind of an umbrella term, I'm stressed. But what is it about the stress? Is it I'm upset with myself again because I found myself in this position? Or am I upset because of some external stimulus that is creating this, for which I need to set some boundaries? But my remedy to those things is going to be different. Yes. And that's
so
what
I need to kind of
the higher level of your brain can help you with. But if you're in a reactive mode,
like,
sort of like what you inferenced before, that if I'm running hot with my feelings, then I probably can't think through these things. I have to cool down first. But if I've reached the point where I can cool down and identify these things, now I can communicate in a better way.
And I can ask for help or request what I need from others in my environment if I know what it is. Why am I stressed? And where's it coming from?
Right.
But just, you could either retreat, that doesn't help, and hide, avoid the pain, or act out. And that's the lower thinking, I think. So another common feeling that we have is feeling disconnected. And that can be so painful. And it's been amplified by the pandemic, because that was definitely something that happened to us.
And being connected is a very basic need for the human being.
It really
so
is.
It really gets to us.
It becomes almost a survival thing.
Yes.
Again, when we were talking about some of the thought leaders, Brené Brown is saying that being connected is that energy that you feel between people, that kind of you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel understood. And I get from you kind of this interaction that's non-judgmental, and that it sustains and strengthens the relationship. And isn't that what we all want?
Yes.
So when that is jeopardized, it can feel really scary. It can feel like it's a threat when you feel disconnected.
A major threat, yes.
So you could feel lonely, you could feel lost, you could feel insignificant and unimportant, and even unloved or unlovable, alone, insecure, and just not feel, you don't have that strength that you get from that connection.
It can actually make you sick.
It can. I know that I felt this way as an empty nester. you know, not only was my whole identity challenged, but it's like I had taken a lot of just the vibrations of having my son at home really strengthened me and buoyed me. And then when that was gone, of course, you know, I had prepared him for this launch, but yet I felt disconnected. It was horrible. So you can choose to pull back to avoid the pain, which is kind of counterintuitive, but we do it because, you know, it dulls that sense of rejection and disconnect. And sometimes people numb the pain of being disconnected, but with, you know, substances.
Right.
I think I numb mine with getting busy. Because if I'm busy enough, I don't have time to think about the disconnect and the
distraction.
You know, the isolation. Or you could react by becoming overly accommodating in order to, like, ingratiate yourself. Like, of course I can make it then, when in fact maybe you can't. But then that can feed kind of a resentment because you're sacrificing yourself in order to be connected. And you can become bitter and negative and not fun to be with. So then that feeds into, like, why would I want to be with this person? Because she's such a Debbie Downer, you know. With my, pardon anybody who's named Debbie in our audience. And in some cases you can just feel like, maybe I'm not lovable, maybe I'm not important. And then that's a place where
that can be a vicious cycle.
You might need help getting out of that kind of sad, depressed, resigned place.
On the other hand, if I, again, engage my thinking part of my brain that can begin to interpret this a little bit better, I can begin to say to or ask myself, what are my feelings telling me?
Yeah.
Am I expressing my interests and the qualities and values about myself of which I'm most proud? And that's getting back to the point you made, be yourself with other people. If I'm giving a false impression, that's not going to feel good, even if I am accepted, because it's not me.
Yeah, because you spend so much time kind of sustaining that facade just in order to belong.
You spend the energy maintaining the facade, and it isn't you, so you get hit on both.
You don't get nourished.
Yes.
Yeah.
It also could be fooling other people, because if I'm not genuine with who I am and what my values are, how can I be connected with people who have similar values that I have, because I'm not giving the right information out? Do I have behaviors that are deterrents to others? So sometimes we can actually be behaving in ways that are turning people off.
That may be a hard one to figure out, because we're not always objective.
Right.
We may need to even
But that's the
have a
reaching out
conversation,
again, to reach out to a friend and say, I want you to be honest with me. Are there some things that are really irritating you about me with it? And that's not an easy place to go to.
That's not an easy place.
And the other thing is, do I have unrealistic expectations of people in terms of friends? And that can be a subtle one, but again, it's reaching out, engaging someone who will be honest with you and still caring, so that you're getting good information about that.
Yeah, and again, you have to take the time to examine your feelings. Why am I feeling disconnected?
Without being super judgmental of the thing, just looking at it.
Like, maybe the relationship has changed, and I need to acknowledge the reality of that. I'm thinking back at empty nesting. It's like, well, yeah, everything's changed. How do I adapt? What do I need to do? I don't need to rush to the place of, I'm not fun to be with, I'm not worthy of somebody's time and attention, but how can I make other connections to kind of supplement this one that has changed? That was a hard leap for me, because I had put a lot of eggs in one basket. And so
being able to share, I think, with someone and be close to you, that this is the way I'm feeling, can you help me out with this?
Help me.
That's a vulnerable position to go into, but that's the very skill and the very situation that can pull you out of this.
It can,
Right.
if you have good friends who know how to be a reflective listener.
And if you don't, you use a therapist.
Yeah, you need to do that. But I'm really appreciating the need to get past the happy, sad, mad repertoire. Because if we just look at isolation and disconnectedness, I mean, it's obviously not happy. It could fit into the angry, sad, but which is it? You know, if we don't look a little more granular, we have these big brushstrokes that are not serving us.
And as you said before, to take that moment, that pause, so that your brain isn't hijacked into a reaction mode, and you can begin to use these questions and think about this, or use another style of communicating with someone else to get some feedback. Then the communication starts, and even the process of asking the questions starts the healing process.
It does. And if we look at the stressed, you know, I'm stressed, that doesn't really fit nicely into the happy, sad, angry either.
Exactly.
I'm sad and angry, but so it's really important to kind of build our vocabulary and teach our children how to build our vocabulary.
Yes, very important.
So we can get caught in these places, and sometimes we need help. We've used the color analogy, but I think also the hunger analogy is important too, because you know, we feel like we're hungry for these things, and hunger, like understanding our feelings, tells us we need to eat. But even then, you know, what is it we want?
Right.
Do we want something sweet? Do we want something savory? Do we want something spicy? Do we want something hot or cold or portable or something we can sit and savor? So we really need to kind of dig down and examine, label, self-regulate, communicate, and we're going to be in a better situation.
Right.
And I feel like we're going to be doing more of this, because this is kind of exciting territory.
Especially in today's society, we need this.
But we aren't going to be able to do any more today, and so we thank you for joining us again today on the Relationship Toolbox, and we'll see you again soon.